Hello everyone. How are you, my friends? Thank you to the subscribers. Here, every story has a terrifying secret. Lonely houses, dangerous places, everything is terrifying. Subscribe now and sit with us in the dark. Let's begin. I've always preferred silence over company. Maybe that's why I decided to move out of the city, to a place where the nights were long, and the only sounds I'd hear were the wind and the hum of my own breath. The house wasn't big, but it was enough for me. One story, old wooden floors, a small fenced yard, and a garage that barely fit my car. It sat on the edge of a small rural town, miles away from the nearest neighbor. I wanted peace, solitude, maybe even a little boredom. I work as a delivery driver for a local pizza shop. Nothing glamorous, but enough to pay rent and feed myself. Most of my shifts ended late, around midnight. By the time I got home, I was usually too tired to do anything but eat leftovers, check my phone, and fall asleep. But something about living alone in a quiet place, it changes how you think. The silence starts talking back. Every creak in the walls feels like a question. Every shadow looks like it's waiting for you to blink first. To calm my nerves, I decided to install security cameras. 4 of them, one facing the front yard, one near the garage, one in the living room, and one in the hallway that led to my bedroom. It wasn't paranoia. I told myself it was just for safety. The installation took a whole weekend. I connected them to my phone so I could watch live feeds anytime. I liked the sense of control it gave me, knowing I could rewind the past 24 hours and see everything that happened while I was asleep. The first week was peaceful. The cameras showed nothing unusual, just my dogs walking around, cars passing on the distant road, and the flicker of insects near the porch light. Until one Thursday night. I got home around 1:30 a.m. The dogs were restless, barking at the hallway. At first I thought they were reacting to a noise outside. But when I checked the cameras, I saw motion alerts. Not outside, but inside the house. The timestamp said 11:47 p.m. That was before I got home. On the screen I saw my living room. Empty at first. Then about 30 seconds later, a faint blur moved across the frame. Not a person, not even a clear shape. Just something shifting. I replayed it again and again. The blur was there every time, moving slowly toward the hallway camera. It could have been a glitch. That's what I told myself. But then I switched to the hallway feed, and there, just before the motion stopped, the camera caught me. I was standing at the end of the hall wearing the same jacket I had on right now, except the time was 11:48 p.m. I wasn't home then. I froze. I thought maybe it was an old clip, or maybe I had forgotten something earlier in the evening. But I checked the logs. The system was recording in real time. That figure, that man, looked exactly like me. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour before convincing myself it was some kind of video error. Maybe the system glitched and looped old footage. Maybe it was compression noise. Anything but what it looked like. I deleted the clip. I shouldn't have done that, because the next night the motion alerts came again. Same time, same spot. And this time, I didn't just see a blur. I saw myself walk past the camera, look directly into the lens, and smile. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in front of the monitor, watching the replay over and over again, frame by frame. There was no mistake. That man was me. Same jacket. Same way of walking. The same small scar under my chin that I got years ago. But the clip was recorded while I was delivering pizzas across town. I checked my phone's GPS records just to be sure. I was 15 miles away during that time. So who or what did the cameras record? By sunrise, my head hurt. The dogs were quiet, asleep on the couch, as if nothing had happened. I told myself I'd had enough. I was going to reset the whole system, maybe even remove the cameras altogether. But curiosity always wins. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was obsession. That night I came home early, around 10:01 p.m. I wanted to catch whatever was happening in real time. I sat on the couch with my laptop open, the live feeds from all 4 cameras displayed in a grid. Everything looked calm. The yard was still. The garage light flickered now and then, probably just a loose bulb. By 11:30, nothing unusual had happened. I started to feel foolish. Maybe I was just overtired. Maybe my brain had edited something that wasn't there. Then, at 11:47 p.m., a motion alert. I jumped. The alert came from the hallway camera again. On screen, I saw the familiar image of the narrow hall, dimly lit by the ceiling light. For a few seconds, nothing. Then something shifted. At first it looked like the shadow of someone passing, then clearer. Someone walked into the frame. It was me. Same clothes I was wearing right now. But the live camera on my laptop was showing this while I was still sitting there watching it. I froze, staring between the hallway feed and my reflection on the laptop screen. The figure, myself, turned his head slightly, like he could see me watching. Then he lifted a finger to his lips, and the feed cut to black. I didn't breathe for nearly a minute. The screen showed only static now. The other cameras were still working fine, front yard, garage, living room, all normal. Only the hallway feed had gone dark. I ran to the hallway. Nothing. No one there. The air was still, heavy. I unplugged the camera, checked the wires, reconnected it. The feed came back, but now the timestamp was wrong. It showed 11:47 p.m. even though it was already after midnight, and the video was looping. It kept showing the same few seconds, me walking into frame, shushing the camera, over and over. For the next few days I tried not to think about it. But my routine started to fall apart. I'd come home from work and find small things out of place. A chair slightly moved, a mug on the counter that I didn't remember using, lights that were on when I was sure I'd turned them off. The worst part was the dogs. They began barking at corners of the house, growling at empty walls, especially near the hallway. Sometimes they refused to enter it at all. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. I'd crash on the couch, with the TV on, and my phone streaming the cameras beside me. I thought maybe someone had broken in or maybe I was losing my mind. So I set traps, small things that would move if anyone walked around while I was gone. Flour on the floor, coins balanced on door handles. Nothing ever moved. And yet the cameras still showed me walking in the hall every few nights, right around 11:47 p.m. One morning I found something that almost made me leave the house for good. I checked the recordings from the night before, the same loop. But this time after he, walked past the hallway camera, the living room camera caught a glimpse of my reflection on the TV screen. Only, my reflection was smiling, and I wasn't. I didn't go to work that day. I just sat there staring at the camera feed until my eyes burned. The other me had stopped appearing for 2 nights straight. I almost felt relief. Maybe it was over. But on the third night, something new happened. At 11:46, 1 minute before the usual time, the front yard camera sent a motion alert. I opened the feed, nothing at first. Then, slowly, the figure appeared outside, walking toward the front door. It was me again. Only this time he was holding my own car keys. And when I looked down at the coffee table in front of me, the keys were gone. When I checked the cameras that morning, I didn't see the dogs leave. I didn't see anything leave. The feeds all looked wrong. The timestamps were scrambled, different dates, overlapping seconds, like the house had stopped caring about time. On one feed, I saw myself walking out the front door at 3 a.m. On another, recorded at the exact same moment, I saw myself asleep on the couch. Both clips were marked as live. I replayed them again and again, trying to find a single logical explanation. Maybe the software was corrupt. Maybe I'd installed something wrong. But the more I watched, the less sense it made. In one clip, my sleeping self opened his eyes slowly and turned his head toward the camera. He smiled and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then the audio came in, distorted like the sound of air being dragged through metal. Stop watching. The feed froze. All 4 screens flickered, then synced at once. Now, every camera showed the same thing, me sitting right there staring at the monitor. I blinked. The me on the screen didn't. He just sat there unmoving, watching me watch him. And then, he stood up, walked out of frame. From somewhere deep in the house, I heard the sound of a door creaking open. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was real. I turned slowly toward the hallway. The air was still. The house felt empty, but awake. Then I heard footsteps, slow, steady, moving closer from down the hall. The dogs didn't bark. There were no dogs anymore. I reached for my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen was already on. The camera app was open, and the live view showed me standing in the hallway. I wasn't in the hallway. The me in the phone camera tilted his head slightly, as if curious, then began walking forward, toward the lens. The closer he got, the more the image distorted, the pixels breaking apart until only static remained, and then the phone went black. The police report later said there was no sign of forced entry, no missing property, nothing disturbed. The footage I'd saved from the cameras was blank, as if it had been recorded over by static. They found my car in the driveway, keys still in the ignition. But no one has seen me since that morning. Sometimes late at night, the motion sensors still trigger in that house. The cameras turn on for a few seconds, and the feed shows a man sitting on the couch, watching the screens, watching himself. I had always liked old houses. There's something about their quiet creaks, the smell of wood that has soaked in decades of life, the way dust floats in the sunlight like it's holding on to memories. So when I found the house on the edge of town, I didn't hesitate. It was massive, a Victorian-era structure, with peeling paint and a sagging porch. The real estate agent said it had been empty for 10 years. That didn't scare me, it intrigued me. I moved in during the first week of autumn. The days were still warm, but the nights were already long and bitter. The first few nights were uneventful. I explored every room, the dining hall, the library stacked with dusty books, the cold, drafty basement. But one room remained locked, the attic. The key had been left in a drawer. I had tried it just for curiosity, but the lock refused. The agent had said something vague about structural instability, and I told myself that was enough. A week after moving in, strange things began. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps overhead. Soft, deliberate pacing. At first, I thought it was the floor settling. The house was old after all. But the sound grew consistent, night after night, exactly at 2:13 a.m. I tried ignoring it. I told myself the attic must be creaking in some strange way, the wind pressing against the roof. Then came the whispers. Soft, almost imperceptible. At first, I thought I imagined them. But every night as I lay in bed, a voice seemed to float down from the attic. "Why are you here?" I would sit up, heart pounding, but the house was empty. No wind, no animals, no one. One night, I decided I needed to know. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. Door, the lock turned this time. I swear it felt like it unlocked. Itself, like the house wanted me to see what was inside. The door opened with a long groan. The attic was small, filled with old furniture, covered in yellowed sheets. Nothing moved, nothing. Until I stepped further in. Then I saw it. A chair. Not unusual in itself, but it was facing the door, as if someone had just been sitting there waiting. And on the chair, a small, dusty diary. I picked it up. The first page was blank. The second had my name on it, not in handwriting I recognized. The letters were crooked, jagged, and every page after that contained entries written in real time, describing what I was doing in the house, down to the exact moment I had picked up the diary. He is curious. He is awake now. He sees me. I dropped the book, heart racing, sweat soaking my shirt. Then I heard it behind me, a soft creak of the floorboards, slow, deliberate, footsteps, pacing the attic. I spun around. Nothing. I ran down the stairs. The house seemed to stretch as I ran, the hallway longer, darker. Doors slammed behind me. Windows rattled without wind, and when I finally reached the front door, it wouldn't open. I spent the rest of the night trapped inside, hearing whispers, footsteps, and the diary pages flipping on their own upstairs. By morning, the door opened as if nothing had happened, but the diary lay on the porch, open to a new page, freshly written. He left, but he will return. They always return. I couldn't sleep that day. The diary sat on the porch open to that last chilling sentence. He left, but he will return. They always return. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone had broken in after I fell asleep. Maybe it was a prank from the previous owner, or someone in town. But the house felt wrong. The walls seemed to pulse with a slow heartbeat. Every floorboard creaked with expectation. By evening, curiosity overtook fear. I went back inside. The attic door was locked again. Not by me. It wasn't just the key, I hadn't touched it. And yet, it clicked open the moment my hand approached. The attic smelled of decay, dust and something else, metallic faint, almost like old blood. The diary lay in the same spot as before, open to the blank page. I picked it up. This time, the writing appeared before my eyes, fresh, as though the pen had just moved across the paper. He is downstairs. He thinks he is alone. He is not. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I looked toward the stairs, and for a split second I thought I saw a shadow move at the landing. I ran down, heart hammering. No one was there. That night the whispers returned. Low, barely audible. I couldn't tell if they were coming from the attic or from inside my own head. Come back. See us. Sleep became impossible. Every creak, every sigh of the old house felt like a message. Even the dogs, who had been cautious before, refused to enter the hallway leading to the attic. They would growl at nothing, hackles raised, eyes fixed on the ceiling. I tried to leave the house that morning. The car refused to start. All the doors. Locked. Not jammed, not broken, locked. And on the dashboard, the diary sat. Open new page. He cannot leave. He never can. Days turned into nights in a blur. I lost track of time. The diary chronicled my movements as if it were alive. He brushed his teeth. He poured water. He looked outside. He does not notice me yet. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I only read the diary. Until the night I saw it. Fully. I climbed the stairs to the attic, drawn by a compulsion I couldn't resist. The diary was on the chair. The chair was facing me. And on it, written in large, jagged letters, was a message I didn't recognize as my own handwriting. Welcome back. We've been waiting. I felt it before I saw it. A presence, standing just behind me, cold, heavy, watching. I spun around. No one, but the attic door slammed shut. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, holding the diary like a shield. Hours? Minutes? Days? Time no longer made sense. When I finally dared to move, I looked down at the diary. The pages were full of entries I hadn't read, written in tense, first person. I see him. He is alive. He does not know yet. He will see. He will join us. The handwriting changed on every page. Some lines shaky, some bold, some almost elegant. I dropped the diary. It landed open, and the attic light flickered. For a moment, I could swear I saw faces in the shadows, peering at me from the rafters, grinning silently. I ran. Downstairs, through the halls that seemed to stretch endlessly. I reached the front door. It opened. Finally. The yard was empty, the street quiet. But on the porch, the diary sat, open to a page I didn't recognize. He left, for now, but the attic remembers. The house remembers. We do too. I fled that house that morning. I haven't returned. But sometimes when the wind is right, I swear I hear the whispers. Come back. We've been waiting. I never thought a convenience store could feel alive. But that night, It did. I've always been the cautious type. Ever since someone robbed the store a few months ago, I'd developed habits. I double-checked locks, counted every dollar, and even slept behind the counter on nights I closed alone. I told myself it was for safety. But safety, as I learned, doesn't protect you from fear that comes from within. That night, I closed the front door at exactly 11 p.m. The lights flickered once, a soft hum filling the empty aisles. I spread my thin blanket behind the counter and tried to sleep. The first few hours were normal. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant buzz of the city far outside, and the occasional creak of the floor. Nothing alarming. Then I heard it. A soft thump. From aisle 3. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. A rat? Maybe a box falling? Possible. I waited. The sound came again. Thump, thump. Moving closer toward the counter. I got up slowly. Sweat ran down my back. My flashlight trembled in my hand. Nothing. The aisles were empty. I told myself to relax. Old building? Loose floorboards, stress, anything but reality. But then the can started moving. At first it was a single can rolling slowly across the linoleum floor. Then another. And another, no wind. No vibration, nothing. I held my breath. The store felt aware. Every aisle, every shadow seemed to be watching me. Hours passed like hours of waiting for something inevitable. I didn't sit down. I didn't try to sleep. Every creak, every flicker of the light, every hum of electricity became amplified in my mind. At 3:14 a.m., I saw it, a dark figure at the far end of aisle 5, tall, motionless, watching. I blinked. When I opened my eyes again, it was gone. I searched every corner, every shelf, every shadow, nothing, but the presence remained. It followed me. The closer I moved, the more I felt it behind me. Sometimes I thought I could hear whispers, soft, almost imperceptible. Why are you here? Stay with us. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stared. By 4:30 a.m., I stopped pretending I could sleep. I sat behind the counter, my hands shaking, staring into the darkness. Every aisle seemed longer than it should be, every shadow thicker. The cans and boxes rolled, fell or shifted just outside my line of sight. The dogs, my 2 mutts who usually slept quietly, hid behind the back shelves, growling at nothing, or maybe at everything. Then came the footsteps, soft, slow, calculated, up and down the aisles, behind shelves, close to my hiding spot. I couldn't see anyone. The cameras I had installed above the aisles? Offline, dead. No signal, no feed. Just static, I whispered to myself. This isn't real. This isn't real, but the sound was real. I could feel it, hear it, taste it in my mouth like iron. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare breathe. By 5:15 a.m., I was convinced I had gone insane. I could hear someone or something walking through the store. But every time I ran toward it, it vanished. I tried shouting. Nothing. I tried the front door. Locked. The back door? Locked. Even the emergency exit was welded shut, as if the store itself had decided I couldn't leave. Hours passed. I couldn't tell the time. The lights flickered constantly, plunging the aisles into darkness for brief moments. Every time I blinked, the store seemed different. Shelves slightly moved, boxes slightly taller, shadows deeper. And then I saw it. At the end of aisle 2, something crouched behind a display. A shape. Dark. Rough edges. Not human. Not entirely. It moved just slightly, like it was aware I was watching. I couldn't see a face, I couldn't see hands. But I knew it was me. The figure walked slowly toward the counter. I froze. My flashlight slipped from my hand. I watched. Helpless. Then, it vanished. Morning came. Sunlight poured through the grimy windows. Everything looked normal. Shelves intact, floor clean, cash register untouched. I took a step toward the counter and froze. I wasn't inside the store. I was outside. The street was empty. No cars. No people, no neighbors. Just cracked asphalt and the faint smell of rain. The store was gone. No walls, no doors, no fluorescent lights, nothing but an empty lot, overgrown weeds, and my own 2 hands shaking in disbelief. I checked my pocket, my phone, notifications, store alert, motion detected at 3:14 a.m., camera feed, unknown subject detected. I had no idea how. I had no idea where the store went. And somewhere behind me, I swear I heard cans rolling across a linoleum floor. Night shift in the empty store. Some nights the store doesn't just close. It waits. And sometimes, it doesn't let you leave. After that first morning, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The store. It wasn't just gone. It had vanished, leaving me alone on that cracked asphalt. I had to go back. I had to know. I returned that evening. The lot looked normal. Overgrown weeds, faded lines of parking spaces, nothing out of place. But as the sun dipped behind the distant buildings, I saw it. The store. There it was. The familiar fluorescent glow spilling through the dirty windows. It had returned. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. The fluorescent lights flickered. The smell of dust, stale coffee, and something else, metallic, filled the air. Everything looked the same, yet not the same. Shelves seemed taller, shadows darker, corners stretching further than they should. I tried to ignore it. I tried to tell myself it was my mind playing tricks. Placed my blanket behind the counter. I tried to sleep. It started at 11 p.m. A can rolled off the farthest aisle. Then another. Then the soft sound of footsteps, not mine, echoing through the empty store. I held my breath. The steps moved in a slow, deliberate rhythm, past aisle 1, past aisle 2, stopping. Right in front of me. I dared not look, but I could feel it. Watching me. The shadows shifted. The lights flickered. Boxes moved slightly. Then, I heard a whisper, "You shouldn't be here." I spun around. Nothing. The store was empty. Hours passed like days. I didn't sit. I didn't sleep. Every time I blinked, I thought I saw movement. A shadow in aisle 3, a shape behind the snacks, a figure at the end of aisle 5. It wasn't human, yet it was me. Or, it looked like me. Same jacket, same posture, same subtle scar under my chin. I realized then that I was no longer just scared. I was trapped, not physically, but mentally. The store was alive, watching me, testing me. By 3:14 a.m., the figure appeared fully. I could see him clearly this time, standing tall, unmoving, eyes fixed on mine. No face, just shadow and intention. I tried to move. My legs wouldn't obey. It walked slowly toward the counter. Closer. Closer. Then, it stopped. It raised a finger to its lips. A shushing gesture. And then, it vanished. The lights went out. I sat in darkness, trembling, unable to breathe. I heard the sound of cans rolling across the floor. Footsteps pacing slowly, deliberately. Whispers growing louder. "Why did you leave?" "Stay with us." Our morning came. I opened my eyes. Sunlight spilled through. Cracked walls. I looked around. The store was gone. I was standing outside. Empty street. No cars. No people. No neighbors. Just asphalt. Just silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Notifications. Store alert. Motion detected at 3:14 a.m. Camera feed, unknown subject detected. I had no idea how. I had no idea what I saw. I had no idea if I had ever left the store, or if the store had ever left me. And then, I heard it, the faint sound of a can rolling across the floor, behind me. Night shift in the empty store, the conclusion. Some nights, the store doesn't just exist, it waits, and sometimes, it doesn't let you leave, even when you think you have. The forest didn't just have silence, it had weight. A silence that pressed on your chest made your heartbeat echo in your ears, made every footstep feel like an intrusion. We had been hiking for hours, 4 friends drawn by curiosity, obsession, or foolish bravery. Maps didn't mark this path. GPS barely worked. The trees were ancient, thick, twisted, blocking the sun and sky like guardians of some forgotten world. Then we saw it. The house. It didn't announce itself. It didn't seem like it wanted to be found. Stone walls blackened with age. Windows dark like empty eyes. The roof sagging, roof tiles cracked and warped. A door barely hanging on its hinges. No lights, no smoke. No sign of human life in hundreds of years. We stopped. The air changed. Even the wind seemed hesitant to pass through the clearing. Are we really going in? Ahmed whispered. No one answered. None of us wanted to admit the thrill, the fear, the foolish excitement that pulled us forward. We stepped through the door. The main floor smelled of damp wood and decay. Dust layers covered every surface. Cobwebs hung thick between beams and corners. Old furniture, chairs, tables, cabinets rotted into skeletons of themselves. The walls were lined with portraits. Faces long dead, staring at us with hollow eyes that seemed to follow every step. We explored cautiously, footsteps muffled by dust. Nothing moved. Nothing lived, but the feeling of being watched, that never left. Then we found it. A trapdoor, hidden beneath a frayed rug in the center of the main room. The wood was brittle, almost blackened with age. It gave way slightly when I pressed my hand against it. Before we could decide, the old man appeared. He didn't emerge from the forest. He didn't appear in the doorway. He seemed to be sitting on a collapsed chair in the corner of the main room. A robe tattered and worn. Skin wrinkled like bark. Eyes sharp, piercing, full of warning. "Don't go down there," he said, voice gravelly, almost a growl. "You will not return if you do." We froze. Ahmed tried to speak. "Sir, we're just explorers?" he snapped. "Foolish children. The house does not welcome the living. The depths are hungry." Even from across the room, I felt his gaze pierce me, rooted me to the floor. We exchanged glances. We knew we should run. We did not. Curiosity, that ancient, terrible impulse, pulled us toward the trapdoor. We descended. The staircase smelled of earth. Rot, something metallic, faint but unmistakable. The walls seemed to close in. The ceiling curved like the ribs of some sleeping beast. At the bottom, a room carved into bedrock. Vaulted ceilings. Walls covered with strange symbols, some etched into stone, some painted with something dark, sticky. A smell of soil, decay, and something older filled our noses. And there, something moved. I couldn't describe it fully. It was shadow, fluid, alive and not alive. It shifted with awareness. It watched us. The air froze. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to climb the stairs and never look back. Ahmed stumbled. I grabbed his arm. The shadow moved faster, almost playful in its speed. The old man's voice echoed in my mind. "Foolish children."
"Run! Run before it knows you!"
We scrambled. The staircase seemed endless. The deeper we ran, the faster the shadow followed. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, to stretch, to try to trap us. Reaching the main floor, the old man was gone. No sign of him. Only the door ajar now. Beckoning us into the forest, we didn't hesitate. Branches whipped our faces. Roots tripped our feet. We ran blindly, screaming, hearts hammering, lungs burning. By the time we stopped, dawn was breaking. The house was gone. Just the forest. Mist curling between the trees. Nothing else. Even now, years later, I remember the sound. Low, guttural, coming from beneath the earth. The smell of the stone. The eyes of the portraits in my mind. The old man's warning lingers. Foolish children. The depths are hungry. We didn't speak much after escaping into the forest. The sun had risen, but its light didn't chase away the terror that clung to us. We knew we had narrowly escaped. But the house remained in our minds, pulsing with something alive beneath the ground. Weeks later, curiosity, or maybe obsession, pulled us back. This time we were more prepared. Flashlights, ropes, cameras. The forest welcomed us back with the same suffocating silence. We reached the clearing. No sign of the house at first. Then, faintly, a silhouette between the trees. The walls blackened, windows empty, door hanging slightly ajar. We approached slowly. Every step on the forest floor felt heavier, like the earth itself tried to pull us back. Inside, the air was colder, familiar dust, rot, and a smell of iron filled our nostrils. Ahmed spotted the trapdoor. It had not moved. The old rug was still frayed, slightly worn. The staircase leading down gaped like a mouth ready to swallow us whole. I hesitated. Ahmed whispered, "Are we really doing this?" I nodded. We didn't have a choice. The need to know was stronger than fear. The first steps down the stairs were slow, careful. The air thickened. Shadows clung to us like wet cloth. The smell grew stronger. Earth, mold, decay, and something else, something that made the back of my throat sting. At the bottom, the room stretched wider than we remembered. Vaulted ceilings, carved stone, symbols painted in black and red. The markings twisted around the walls, almost alive, moving in the flickering flashlight beams. Then we heard it. A low, guttural sound like stone grinding on stone. We froze. From the far side of the room, the shadows moved, not randomly. They shifted in patterns, shapes that resembled twisted faces, eyes glowing faintly red. I shivered. Ahmed whispered, "Do you see that?" The others nodded, frozen, and then the center of the room stirred. A figure rose from the floor itself. It had no solid form, only the vague shape of a man, tall, elongated, limbs stretching impossibly. Its face was a void, blacker than the shadows surrounding it. It moved fluidly, silently. But I felt every step like a weight pressing on my chest. The old man's words echoed in our minds. "Run! Run before it knows you!" We turned. The staircase seemed farther than before, stretching endlessly into darkness. The figure followed. Not fast. Not slow, perfectly in time with our panic. We tripped, fell scrambled, every step, every heartbeat. The room seemed to twist. Walls narrowed. Floors cracked, shadows leapt. At one point, I saw one of the carved symbols glow faintly. A scream almost tore itself from my throat. The symbol twisted, coiled, and for a moment, I could see faces within it. Faces screaming, writhing, reaching. I grabbed Ahmed's hand. He screamed when he felt it. Something cold, almost liquid, brushed his arm. We ran harder. Finally, we reached the stairs. We ran up blindly, feet slipping on the rotten wood. The figure followed, stretching impossibly, limbs bending, reaching. A whisper filled the air, low, chanting in a language older than memory. "Stay. Join. Never leave." We burst through the trapdoor onto the main floor. Sunlight pierced the broken windows. The old man wasn't there. The door hung ajar. We didn't hesitate. Branches whipped our faces. Roots tripped us, but we ran. We didn't look back. Not once. By the time we stopped, we were gasping for breath. The house, gone, just the forest. Mist curling through the trees. Silence. Weeks passed. We told no one. We couldn't. Even the thought of the house, the shadows, the whispers, made our stomachs churn. Sometimes when the wind moves through the trees, I swear I hear the chanting. I hear the low, guttural voice echoing from beneath the earth. And I remember the old man's eyes, sharp, warning, alive. Foolish children. The depths are hungry. After weeks of silence, the dreams began. At first, they were flashes. The house in the forest, the trapdoor, the black symbols burning on the walls. Then they became longer, clearer. In every dream, I stood in the same room underground, surrounded by whispers. They called my name again and again, until I woke up drenched in sweat. Ahmed had the same dreams. He wouldn't answer his phone anymore. One night, he sent a voice message. "It's not a dream. It's calling us back." I deleted the message. but his voice stayed in my head. A week later, I drove back to the forest. I didn't tell anyone. The road was the same, but the trees felt closer, denser, like they were leaning in, listening. When I reached the clearing, the house was there again. It shouldn't have been. We saw it disappear, but there it was. Whole, quiet, waiting. The door creaked open by itself, like it remembered me. Inside, everything was as we left it. Dust, footprints, the smell of decay. Except one thing, the trap door was open. A faint light pulsed from below, red and slow, like a heartbeat. I should have left, but something inside me wanted to know the truth. I descended the stairs. The deeper I went, the more the air thickened. There were new markings on the walls, faces drawn in charcoal, distorted, all screaming silently. The light pulsed from the end of a long corridor, where the stone was damp and black. And there, in the center of that chamber, was Ahmed. He stood perfectly still, facing the wall. His back was bare, symbols carved deep into his skin, bleeding slowly. I whispered his name. He turned. His eyes were open, but empty. His mouth moved slowly, whispering words that weren't human. The sound echoed like wind through a grave. "It wants you too," he said. I stumbled back, flashlight trembling. Behind him, the wall shifted. No, it breathed. A massive shape pressed from the other side of the stone, as though something ancient was trying to push through. The red light grew brighter, and I realized it wasn't light. It was blood seeping through the cracks, glowing faintly in the dark. Then everything went silent. For one heartbeat, there was only my breath. Then, the whisper returned. "Join us." Ahmed fell to his knees. The symbols on his skin began to move, glowing red. He screamed, not from pain, but from something deeper, something pulling him apart from the inside. The floor split open beneath him. He fell into darkness. I reached out, but it was too late. The ground shook violently, the ceiling cracked, and I saw movement everywhere. The walls themselves were alive, covered with shifting faces. Each face whispered a word, over and over, "Below." I ran, up the stairs, through the house, out into the forest. But as I reached the tree line, I looked back. Ankara in the house was gone again. It's been 3 months. I can't sleep. Sometimes, I hear tapping under my floorboards at night. Other times, I wake up outside, standing in the forest, barefoot, not remembering how I got there. Yesterday morning, I found something near my doorstep, a piece of old wood, cracked and rotting, and it, written in blood. It was the whisper that woke me up again. Soft, familiar, coming from under the bed. "You left him there." I froze. The same voice I'd heard in the tunnels, the same tone Ahmed had whispered before he vanished. When I reached for the light switch, the bulb flickered once, then died. The darkness pulsed, slow, like a heartbeat. The whisper came again, this time closer. "He's waiting for you." I stumbled backward, grabbed my flashlight, and aimed it at the floor. Nothing, but when I turned toward the door, there was a handprint on it, black, charred, fresh. That was the moment I knew I couldn't escape it. The forest. The house. It was inside me now. The return to the forest. At dawn, I packed my things and drove. No music, no noise, just the sound of tires on wet road. The forest appeared through the morning fog, silent as a graveyard, and at the edge of the clearing, the old man. He was sitting on a log, same torn coat, same hollow eyes. When he saw me, he didn't look surprised. He simply said, "You came back. I told you you'd come back." I asked him what that thing was under the house. He looked toward the trees, his voice low and shaking. "That's not a thing. It's the land itself. The first hunger." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He sighed, eyes glassy. "This forest was built on graves older than memory. When men came here, they dug deep, too deep, and woke something. It feeds on fear. On remembrance. That's why the house returns. It finds those who saw it and calls them home. Then he leaned closer, whispering, "The only way to end it is to go below." The descent, I followed him back to the clearing. The house stood there again, rebuilt, perfect as if it had never burned, never crumbled. The windows reflected no light. The front door opened before we touched it. Inside, the air was still. No dust, no smell, just silence so thick it hurt to breathe. The old man walked straight to the trapdoor. Without hesitation, he went down first. I followed, though every step felt like stepping deeper into a grave. The tunnels were longer this time. The walls glistened, wet and pulsing faintly. It smelled like earth and metal. We reached the central chamber. The same glowing red cracks lined the floor. The old man stopped and whispered, "It's awake." Then the ground trembled. The awakening. The cracks widened, and something began to rise, not flesh, not shadow, something in between. It shifted constantly, never settling into one form. Faces emerged and disappeared across its surface. Some I recognized. Ahmed's. Mine. The old man's younger face. I screamed, but no sound came out. The air itself was heavy. The old man fell to his knees, chanting words that made my head ache. The creature responded, its form splitting. Growing arms that reached toward him, he shouted one last time, "Get out! Don't let it remember your name." The floor erupted. The red light swallowed everything. I ran. I woke up on the forest floor, covered in dirt. It was night. No house, no old man, no sound, but carved into the soil beside me. My name, written in the same red color that had glowed beneath the house. It remembers. I screamed until my throat tore, but the forest didn't answer. Only the wind, whispering through the trees, carrying the same words that would never leave me again. The forest keeps what it loves. It's been a year. I moved far away, across the country, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the glow under the floor. Sometimes, I wake up standing at my door, barefoot, mud on my feet. And each time, I find it there waiting, a small piece of wood, cracked and dark, with a single sentence carved into it. It was Friday night, the kind of night when silence feels heavier than usual. The neighborhood outside was still, frozen under the soft hum of distant streetlights. Inside his small house, Daniel Huxley sat alone on his couch, half asleep, watching an old horror movie. The time, 11:47 p.m. The air, cold enough to make his breath visible, and the sound of the TV was the only thing keeping him company. Then, buzz, his phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. "Can you come downstairs?" He blinked. The message didn't make sense. He was already downstairs. His house had only one floor and a small basement. He typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. He sighed, turned back to the movie. But 10 minutes later, another buzz. "Please come downstairs. I'm scared." This time the words felt different. Desperate. Something in his chest tightened. He typed again. "You've got the wrong number." Still no reply. Then came a faint thud from somewhere under the floor. Daniel muted the TV. He waited. Another thud. Then a slow creak like old wood under a heavy step. The sound was coming from the basement. He grabbed his flashlight and walked toward the door. The wood was cold under his fingers. He opened it. The air that rose up was damp and foul. The basement smelled of dust, mold, and something else. "Metallic, hello?" he called down. Nothing. Then his phone buzzed again. "Stop calling my name." His hand trembled. He hadn't said his name. He shut the basement door immediately, locked it, and took a step back. That's when the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the phone buzzed again. A picture message. It was his living room, taken from behind him, and in the photo, someone was standing in the hallway. Chapter 2. The basement door. Daniel's breath came in shallow gasps. He turned around. The hallway was empty. He checked the front door, locked. The windows, shut tight, trying to convince himself it was a glitch. He deleted the messages and sat down. But deep inside, something didn't feel right. He could feel the house breathing with him. At 12:31 a.m., he heard a knock, 3 soft taps. They came from inside the walls. He froze, listening. The sound moved. Tap, 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 traveling along the hallway until it stopped behind the basement door. His phone buzzed again. "Don't come down here." His throat went dry. He whispered, "Who are you?" But got no answer and only another creak from below. Suddenly the house went dark. Total blackout. Daniel's flashlight flickered weakly as he stumbled through the living room. He aimed the beam toward the basement door and saw it. The door was open. A low whisper drifted up the stairs, so faint it almost blended with the wind. "Daniel." He took a step back. The light flickered again. For a split second he saw a shadow at the bottom of the stairs. He slammed the door shut and ran to his bedroom upstairs. But when he entered, his phone lit up again. A new message. "I'm upstairs now." The screen turned to a new image. His bedroom, taken from the doorway, from where he was standing now. He dropped the phone. Chapter 3. The Last Message. The police found Daniel's phone the next morning, cracked and wet with condensation near the front door. The house was a mess and furniture overturned. Basement door torn from its hinges, but Daniel was gone. Officers combed through the place and discovered something disturbing. In the basement, the concrete wall had been chipped away in a rough square shape, like a door had been carved open. Behind it was a small, hidden room filled with old tools, rusted chains, and a single wooden chair. On the wall, written in what looked like old, dried paint or something worse, and were the words, "Can you come downstairs?" When they searched Daniel's phone data, they found records of the strange number, one that didn't exist in any registry. Worse, the timestamps of the messages showed something impossible. The first one was sent from Daniel's own phone. That night, neighbors reported seeing lights flicker in his house again, even though the power had been cut off. And just before midnight, one of them claimed to hear a phone buzzing inside. Then a voice whispered softly through the dark. It had been 1 year since Daniel Huxley vanished. The small house on the edge of Mill Creek Road had been empty all that time, silent, forgotten, its windows dark and its lawn overgrown. Locals said the house was cursed. The real estate company said it was cheap, and that was enough for Evan Miller to move in. Evan was 27, quiet and broke. After losing his job, he needed somewhere cheap, anywhere that could give him peace. The agent didn't mention Daniel's name until after the papers were signed. The last tenant just disappeared. "Probably ran off," she said. "The house is fine." But fine wasn't the word Evan would use the first night he stepped inside. Chapter 1. The Basement. The smell hit him first, a damp, metallic scent like old water and rusted pipes. The walls were pale and cracked, the floors cold under his boots. In the living room, the wallpaper peeled like dying skin. Still, Evan told himself it was only temporary, just until he could save up enough for somewhere better. He noticed the basement door immediately. It was newer than the rest of the house, freshly painted, but with deep scratches near the handle. Something about it made him uneasy. That night, he lay in bed scrolling through his phone. The house creaked occasionally, but otherwise it was silent, until 12:17 a.m. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Can you come downstairs?" Evan froze. He stared at the message for a full minute before laughing nervously. A prank, he thought. Someone from town, maybe. He texted back, "Who is this?" No response. He put the phone away, turned off the lamp, and tried to sleep. But not long after, from the basement came a faint sound, knocking, 3 times. Slow, hollow, tap, tap, tap. Chapter 2. The Recordings. The next day, Evan explored the basement in daylight. Dust covered everything. A few boxes, some old tools, a rusted chair, and behind a wall, a sealed wooden panel. The smell was worse here. Something rotten. In one corner, he found a small USB flash drive buried under debris. It had DH scratched onto it. He plugged it into his laptop upstairs. There were 3 audio files. The first was static. The second, heavy breathing. The third one froze him in place. Daniel's voice, "It's coming through the walls. Don't open the door. Please." Static. Evan yanked out the flash drive. His stomach turned. That night he slept with the lights on. At 12:17 a.m. his phone buzzed again. "Can you come downstairs?" This time a second message followed. "Please hurry. It's lonely down here." He dropped the phone. His hands trembled. When he looked again, the screen was dark, as if the phone had died. But he hadn't touched it. From below, the knocking started again, 3 times, then silence, then a whisper. "Evan!" He ran out of the house barefoot and didn't stop until he reached the gas station half a mile away. Chapter 3. The Wall. When police returned with him the next morning, everything seemed normal. The phone had no record of any messages. The basement door was closed and locked. But one of the officers noticed something strange. The wooden panel on the basement wall looked slightly loose. They pried it open. Behind it was a narrow tunnel, about 3 feet wide, leading into darkness. The air that came out was freezing. At the end of that tunnel, they found a small room. There was an old chair, a phone charger plugged into an outlet that shouldn't exist, and writing on the walls, words scratched into the plaster with something sharp. "Can you come downstairs? Please come back. It's lonely here." The floor was covered in old cell phones, dozens of them, dead and silent. Each had the same message on the screen. "Can you come downstairs?" Evan moved out that day. He never returned. But 3 nights later, the new tenant and a woman named Claire called the landlord. She sounded calm at first, then terrified. She whispered, "Someone keeps texting me from the basement." The landlord asked what the message said. Claire's voice shook as she read it aloud. "Can you come downstairs? I'm scared." Then the call cut off. No one has answered her phone since. It had been 3 days since Claire vanished. Her car still sat in the driveway. The lights in her rented house still flickered through the blinds, and the neighbors said they could hear her phone ringing every night at exactly 3:17 a.m. Detective Mara Ellison stood on the porch in the rain, her coat dripping, her breath visible in the cold night air. She had handled dozens of disappearances before, but this one felt wrong the moment she stepped onto the property. The silence of the house wasn't empty. It was watching. Her partner forced the door open. The smell that spilled out was thick and metallic, a mix of mold, dust, and something faintly like blood. Everything inside seemed frozen in time. A cup of tea half finished on the table, a chair slightly pulled out, Claire's cracked phone on the couch, still glowing faintly. When Mara picked it up, the screen flickered, and a message appeared without her touching it. "Can you come downstairs?" The sound of the basement door creaking open made her jump. No wind, no movement, yet it opened slowly, like someone or something had been waiting for her. They descended the wooden steps. The floorboards cried beneath them, and with every step the air grew colder, heavier, harder to breathe. The flashlight beams trembled against damp walls. The basement was empty except for a single wooden chair in the center and a broken section of wall revealing a narrow tunnel leading further down. Mara moved closer. The walls were wet, dripping, almost pulsing. A faint hum filled the tunnel, like a phone vibrating far away. When she followed it, she found a small concrete room at the end. Dust, old broken phones scattered on the floor, and leaning against the wall, a cracked mirror. As she stepped closer, her light dimmed until the room was almost swallowed by darkness. Her reflection flickered. For one heartbeat, she saw Claire standing behind her, whispering something she couldn't make out. Then the reflection moved, even though Mara didn't. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the phones. One of them lit up on the ground. "Don't look away." Another buzzed. Then another. Soon every phone in the room came to life, vibrating and glowing, all showing the same sentence. "Can you come downstairs?" Upstairs, the lights began flickering wildly. Her partner shouted her name, but his voice sounded distant, distorted, as if coming through an old radio. Mara turned toward the mirror. Its surface rippled like water. Then a whisper echoed through the tunnel. not through her ears but directly inside her mind. "You hear us now?" "We never left." Her flashlight fell, rolling toward the wall. For a fraction of a second, the beam illuminated the mirror, and Mara saw hands, dozens of them pressing against the glass from the other side. Pale, trembling, wet. The first hand broke through. The sound was like tearing fabric. Soft. "Wrong wet," Mara screamed, fired her gun, the echo exploding through the tunnel. But there was no bullet hole, no blood. Only the mirror shaking violently as more arms began to crawl through. Upstairs, her partner heard a final crash and ran down after her. The tunnel was silent. The mirror was gone. Only Mara's phone lay on the chair, buzzing over and over with a new message. As the phone buzzed relentlessly on the chair, not a single sound came from the rest of the room. It was as if the entire house had gone silent, holding its breath. The air had grown thick, almost tangible, pressing down on anyone brave enough to enter the basement. Then, faint whispers began to rise from every corner, overlapping, impossible to locate. "You're next, join us, you can't escape." No one was visible, yet Mara felt it everywhere, watching her, surrounding her, pressing closer with each breath she took. Shadows began to move, not slow, clumsy shadows, but fluid, unnatural forms sliding along the walls and floor, twisting in impossible angles. The faint reflection from the scattered phones shimmered unnaturally, showing dozens of faces, some familiar, some unrecognizable, all staring at her. The whispers became louder, almost forming words she could understand. She came downstairs. "Now you come." Her heart pounded. Mara tried to run back toward the stairs, but the floor beneath her feet seemed to shift, elongate, trapping her in a space that was simultaneously familiar and impossible. From the mirror's direction, a shadow detached itself, moving toward her, fluid and silent. Hands, dozens of wet, pale hands, emerged from the dark, grasping at the air around her. The phone buzzed again. "We've been waiting," Mara screamed, reaching for the light, but the flashlight had rolled too far out of reach. The shadow was closer now, stretching, twisting, wrapping itself around the edges of the room like smoke, solidifying into fingers. The last thing Mara saw before the darkness swallowed her completely was a single face in the mirror, pale and wet, staring back at her and whispering her name. "Welcome to the basement." Outside, her partner called her name again and again, but there was no response. The basement remained silent except for the faint hum of phones buzzing one after another, and on each screen the same message appeared. "Can you come downstairs?" Days passed. The house on Mill Creek Road sat in silence, but the feeling around it had changed. Neighbors swore the windows seemed darker than usual, as if absorbing the sunlight, and the air around the property felt unnaturally cold even in the morning. Detectives returned to investigate Mara's disappearance. They found the basement door locked from the inside. The room was empty, no sign of her. Except for the phones, dozens of them scattered across the floor. Each screen glowed faintly, displaying the same chilling message. "Can you come downstairs?" One officer dared to pick up a phone. The moment he did, the screen flickered violently and a distorted whisper filled the room. "She's with us. Now it's your turn." The lights flickered. The temperature dropped sharply. Breathing became difficult. It felt as though the very walls were closing in. A soft tapping started from the far corner of the basement. Tap, 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 slow, deliberate, almost measured. Then came a creaking sound, like someone dragging themselves across the floor. The officers shone their flashlights toward the corner. Nothing. Suddenly, the scattered phones all lit up simultaneously. The glow filled the room, reflecting dozens of shadowed faces in the walls, the ceiling, even the broken mirror against the far wall. Some faces twisted, grinning, some screaming silently, their eyes hollow. One of the officers screamed as a shadow detached itself from the darkness. It wasn't solid, but moved like liquid smoke, stretching, twisting, and reaching toward the nearest phone. Hands emerged, pale, wet, with elongated fingers that seemed to drip into the air. The officers tried to run toward the stairs, but the basement seemed larger than it should have been. The ceiling stretched upward. The walls elongated. The stairs disappeared into darkness. The room had become a prison, a space that didn't obey the rules of reality. The phones buzzed louder, almost drowning out the screams. "You can't leave. You never leave." "You're one of us now." From the mirror, another face emerged. It was Mara. Her eyes wide with terror, lips moving silently. Her reflection twisted, elongating unnaturally as if trying to crawl out of the glass. The shadows moved closer, enveloping the officers. One reached for the mirror, and in an instant the reflection changed. Now it showed the basement full of dozens of people, each a past victim, sitting in the same wooden chair, staring blankly ahead, their phones in their laps glowing with the same terrifying message. "Can you come downstairs?" The officers screamed, but their voices were swallowed by the room. The lights went out. Total darkness. Hours later, when neighbors called the police about the flickering lights in the house, the officers were never found. Only the basement remained, silent except for the faint, persistent buzzing of dozens of phones, and on every screen the message continued, waiting for the next person who would dare to answer. "Can you come downstairs?" Weeks passed. The house on Mill Creek Road remained abandoned, silent, and foreboding, except for the faint humming that neighbors sometimes claimed to hear. Late at night. One rainy evening, a young man named Ethan Parker, a paranormal investigator, arrived. He had heard the rumors, the disappearances, the strange messages, the shadows in the basement. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he was curious, and he needed evidence for his show. As soon as Ethan stepped inside, the air changed. Cold, thick, heavy. The smell hit him immediately, damp, metallic, and something human. He explored cautiously. The living room was the same as the last reports. Peeling wallpaper, overturned furniture, dozens of dead cell phones scattered around. Each phone lit faintly as he passed. Then he saw it, the basement door. Fresh scratches lined the handle, almost glowing in the dim light. A faint buzzing echoed from below, the same chilling message he had read about countless times. "Can you come downstairs?" Ethan swallowed, but he descended anyway. The basement had changed. The walls stretched impossibly, the air cold and oppressive. Dozens of phones lit up around him simultaneously, displaying the same phrase, vibrating as though alive. Shadows twisted along the walls. Then he saw them. The victims. Mara, Claire, Daniel, and countless others. They sat motionless in the chairs, eyes wide, holding glowing phones, their faces pale and hollow. None blinked. None moved. And yet, they were aware. A whisper floated through the room. They answered, "Now it's your turn." Ethan turned toward the mirror against the far wall. It rippled like liquid. From its surface, dozens of pale hands reached out, wet and trembling. The reflections of the previous victims appeared behind him. He tried to run. The stairs had vanished. The basement had become a cage, larger than the house itself, walls stretching endlessly. The phones buzzed louder, synchronized, screaming the message in a chorus of static and whisper. "Can you come downstairs?" The shadows moved faster now. Hands reached from every angle, wrapping around his arms and legs. Ethan's flashlight fell and rolled away. He screamed as the last light flickered in his eyes. The final sound was his phone hitting the ground. It lit up one last time. "Welcome, you're one of us now." Days later, neighbors noticed the lights flickering again and faint buzzing coming from inside. No one ever entered the house again. And on every phone in that basement, the message remained, waiting for the next curious soul. After Ethan vanished, the house seemed quieter than ever, on the surface. But inside, nothing had stopped. The faint glow of hundreds of phones still pulsed endlessly. The whispers, once faint, had grown into a repeating echo, twisting through the air. "We're here. We hear you. Come downstairs." A curious neighbor, as bold as usual, approached the front door just before midnight. He heard nothing but the wind, or so he thought. Suddenly, one of the phones upstairs screamed, "Don't look! Come downstairs!" The walls trembled, as if the house itself were breathing. The neighbor froze. A chill swept through him, bone deep and unnatural. Inside, the phones flickered in unison, casting a pale blue light across the basement floor. The glow reflected dozens of shadowed faces, past victims, pale and silent, staring from every surface. Then, from behind the front door, a soft creak echoed. Something was moving inside, slow, deliberate. The shadows in the basement stretched upward, pressing against the walls, reaching for any light. The whisper grew louder, almost sentient. "It's waiting. It's hungry. It wants you." The neighbor turned to run, but the door wouldn't budge. The handle felt like ice frozen in his hand. The phones buzzed louder, vibrating through the floor, walls, and even the air around him. Each screen displayed the same words in unison. "Can you come downstairs?" Then the faintest movement appeared at the edge of his vision, a hand pale and dripping sliding along the wall toward him. The house was no longer just a building. It was alive, patient, hungry, eternal. And somewhere deep in the basement, another message blinked onto a phone. "We've been waiting for you." The neighbor's scream was the last sound anyone ever heard from outside the house. And the house waits. Always. For the next curious soul. Years had passed since the first disappearance. The house on Mill Creek Road remained abandoned, its windows dark, its lawn overgrown with weeds and wild grass. The town had learned to whisper about it in fear, warning outsiders, "Do not go near that house." But the house did not care. It was patient, hungry, eternal. Inside, the basement pulsed with life that no one could see. Hundreds of cell phones lay scattered on the cold concrete floor, their screens glowing faintly, vibrating, and endlessly, repeating the same message. "Can you come downstairs?" The voices of past victims echoed through the walls. Daniel Huxley, Mara Ellison, Claire, Ethan Parker, and countless others whose names were now lost to memory. They sat in the chairs, pale and hollow-eyed, holding phones that buzzed like tiny heartbeats. Their faces were frozen in terror, but their minds were trapped, aware and screaming silently inside the house's endless darkness. The basement had grown impossibly large, the walls stretching farther than the house's exterior could contain. The mirror remained, cracked but alive, rippling like liquid, showing glimpses of the outside world, glimpses of potential victims, wandering too close, curious enough to see. Occasionally someone approached, a wandering traveler, a paranormal investigator, a local who thought they were brave, and each time the house extended its shadow, reaching beyond walls, reaching into minds. The whispers would start softly. "We're here, we see you, come downstairs." The phones would light up, buzzing in unison. The shadows would twist along the walls, pressing through cracks, sliding under doors, and the hand, the pale, dripping hand, would appear first at the edges of vision, then closer, until there was no escape. Some tried to resist. Some ran. Most didn't. Those who answered the call were slowly pulled into the basement, their screams swallowed by the walls. And then, like all the others, they sat in the chairs, holding the glowing phones, trapped in the house's endless hunger. Time had no meaning inside. Days and years blurred. The house thrived on fear, feeding on curiosity, and every new victim added to its power. It learned, it waited, it anticipated. Outside, the house looked quiet, peaceful, forgotten, a relic. Inside, it whispered constantly. Its message never changed, but its victims always did. "Can you come downstairs?" Sometimes at night, a neighbor would hear faint buzzing. Sometimes a passing driver would glimpse a shadow behind the curtains. And sometimes, just sometimes, a new phone would appear on the lawn glowing faintly, waiting for the next curious soul to pick it up. The house had become more than a building. It was a being, a predator, a trap, and it was eternal, patient, watching, waiting. It did not forget. It did not forgive. It only waited for the next person brave or foolish enough to answer its call. "Can you come downstairs?" And so the cycle continued, forever. The house waits. It always waits.